Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Hello.
And Sam Williams.
An absolute honour to be here, Thomas. Is it too late, gentlemen, to say Happy New Year, given this will be podcast numero uno of 2022?
Well, Happy New Year to you too. It's taken a long time.
Clearly there was a lot to reflect on in that end of year, year in review pod. Everyone's been going away, doing some serious introspection and thinking about what they can bring to the table in 2022. So, yeah.
Have we got any golf in New Year's resolutions?
Excuse me?
Have we got any golf in New Year's resolutions?
That's a good question.
I mean, you're stumped.
So you mean from a playing?
Yeah, like I just thought it's New Year, new me, Still trying to get to scratch.
New year, new me. I'll put it out there very quickly. I want to play a little bit more competitive golf this year. It's probably mine.
Define competitive.
I don't know. I'd like to play a little bit more, a bit more competitive golf, a bit more stuff with card in hand.
So you're talking about? Are you talking about medal? Are you talking about?
Yeah. General
foursomes match play, Brent Knoll, kind of the stuff.
That sort of stuff. Just more competitive. Yeah, definitely. So not higher level competition, but what I mean by that would be, it's a little bit more competitive. I look back on last year, we did so much traveling, but actually I hardly played anything to sharpen up my game for. Very few things, maybe a couple of matches here and there, but maybe that's a little bit.
I think I'd go with that too. I mean, I haven't played, I think probably a consequence of Cookie Jar. I think we play a hell of a lot of golf, and I don't think I've played a competition since like July. So yeah, I'd like to play a bit more, get a card in my hand a little bit more and try and get the handicap down. Although I am in the position of, I know that I've got in the new WHS system, I've got two good scores that are about to evaporate very quickly.
Haven't we all?
So it's like, I don't, it's almost like maybe if I don't put a card in for a while, it'll be a good thing. But
yeah, no, it's a common theme, isn't it? The more competitive golf, but it's totally fair because certainly our club at Blackwell last year, and I think just at most clubs in England, it felt like the season didn't really start until May, June, and you maybe had in our case, we had a couple of qualifiers or maybe one qualifying round. I think it might have been one medal round, and then you kind of straight into your big ticket medal events like there's the club championship or there's the scratch knockout and things like that. It'd be nice to just, I think this year, feel like you have a bit of a run up to all of that if you can play the odd competitive round here and there through the spring, and even later in February time. I think that's where you could sort of start getting going if the weather is kind. But yeah, I'd echo what you've both said.
But of course, Bruce, the reason we haven't podded up until today, and we've waited so long in 2022 is obviously your fault, Bruce. You have been playing some competitive golf. You've had your defense of the putter. And huge congratulations to get to the final of the putter again, nearly defending it, nearly going back to back. It's a huge achievement and really well done in the putter again, Bruce.
Yeah, outstanding work. I'm sure we can do some canned claps there and applause, but that is hell of an achievement.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a very fun week. Came second, first loser, whatever you want to call it. Which is, Josh, who I played in the final, is a top guy, really nice guy, who I know relatively well. He's a good friend and a great player. So didn't mind losing to him, I guess you could say. But yeah, really nice way to start the year. I've missed it last year to get back down to Rye and just, I mean, it's such a brilliant course in the winter down there. It's just a great course all round, but particularly in the winter with how firm it is underfoot. And I mean, just links golf in the winter. We're obviously all huge fans of links, aren't we? But certainly getting to play Rye for 7 rounds over 3-4 days at the start of the year, I felt like I was starting off 2022 right. Yeah,
savage amount of golf,
but it was really good fun. And onwards and upwards, hopefully.
Yeah, well, no, you did yourself proud, mate, and we're well done again. And today is an interesting pod because we're going to talk about Rye again, I imagine, because this podcast is going to be the start of a series of podcasts, hopefully, depending on how it goes down, all around an idea that kind of came to Sam off the back of the Top 100 Golf Courses podcast that we did with Sam Cooper and Simon Holt. Sam, why don't you run with it?
Yeah, so look, I think this is a really exciting little thing that's perhaps morphed a little bit from when we first talked about it. But when we did the podcast with Simon Holt on Top 100 Golf Courses, he was talking a lot about his top 100 and, you know, playing all those courses, and then the concept of building an eclectic 18. So, you know, for those that haven't listened to it, he found this a really difficult exercise. And the reason being, an eclectic 18 can be as simple as just pick your favorite 18 holes. But what he's done is pick holes 1 to 18, but actually the whole number has to correlate to the scorecard. I.e., if you pick the old course, first hole, it can only go in as hole number 1. So if you've got competing opening holes, you've got to pick your favorite opening hole. And then I guess you've got to think about, when you're doing this, how it comes up into a wider packaged 18. It could be things that are really important to you. And I thought, well, that's quite a cool, interesting topic that we would probably all take a lot of joy in doing. I should add that you can only pick the holes from courses you've played. So, you know, there's no like any of us throwing in Augusta holes or anything stupid like that. But then what you'd almost have is almost like a little desert island discs, wouldn't you? So, you know, it becomes a bit of a story of a golfer a little bit through the eyes of their favorite 18 golf holes and how they build a scorecard. So I thought, well, let's do that as a podcast. And, you know, an early sort of spoiler alert, we're probably going to look to do this as a few sort of guest specials. So maybe bring on some guys that may have been on the podcast before, people of interest in the game, whether it's architects, whether it's players, whoever it could be. And they'll do their eclectic 18, because actually, I suspect that's a lot more interesting for them as well than coming on and telling us their life story. Actually, it's an exercise that I know I've taken a lot of enjoyment in doing. So, yeah, I think it's kind of, and we really wanted to kickstart with this, which is why we held off, I think, podding for a couple of weeks, because we just wanted to start with a bang in 2022. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, you boys enjoyed putting it together, right?
Yeah, I think we've all kind of road tested a little bit already before coming on air with one another, and also just friends and family members who are keen golfers, and there's just so much debate, I think, to be had on which holes you pick. And you know, you do have to choose between your sort of your kids, really, as I guess is the best analogy. It's like you got to choose your favorite, you got to cut your darlings and be really brutal with it, because you can only pick, you know, one course once. And
yes,
yeah,
great shout. I left that one out.
There's a lot of interesting kind of things that go on under the surface, as you say, Sam. Like, people think about it differently. I know you're, for example, very conscious of how the course would fit together practically, and the flow of it, and the number of par threes you have, the number of par fives, the total yardage, you know, the sort of chances you might have versus the holes out there that you've picked that might just be absolutely rock hard, you know, take a par and run away with it, versus good birdie chances and things like that you want to consider. Also, something I noticed I think is quite interesting, there's a lot of unbelievable fourth holes out there as well, it seems. So really quite hard to choose on that front. And there's some courses that have a load of really great holes, and you maybe pick a hole number that isn't perhaps the best there, but you do that strategically because you're finding, I don't know, a certain hole number trickier to fill. So there's a lot, I think, to get into. And maybe it's just best if we kind of kick it off and run with our opening holes, because I think we've probably all picked slightly different ones. Well, I know we've all picked different ones. And
is
it's
that
maybe
how
a good
we're
way
going
to
to
kick
do
us
this?
off.
Because this is going to be the only one where 3 people at once, or even 2 people at once, really, are doing an eclectic 18. So,
well, I'm curious to know how people went about it
and go from there.
Well, I think we're going to get there, aren't we? But I'm curious to know just how you boys went about the task and how you approached it. Did you just write it down on a piece of paper, 1 to 18, and then just think, right, let's get some notes down? Or did you have an idea of, do you know what? There's a few bankers already, or there's some of these holes that are actually just, to me, really important. Maybe they're not the best in the world. I'm curious, because I tried to build this and had a few. I mean, look, you know, without trying to sound too much like Tom Simpson or Herbert Fowler, I tried to have a few principles, I guess, in my head that I thought were important, but they're probably completely different to you guys. So I'm just curious to know.
So my own personal take, I went with, as you said, a couple of holes, or just ideas that I had firmly in my mind about this is where they needed to be. So for me, the first and 18th holes, ideally, I'd probably go both of them would be St Andrews, but I knew that at least one of them needed to be the old course. And I'm still a little bit torn. Part of me feels like I should have picked the old course for the opening tee shot because it is just such an unbelievably unique experience. And it doesn't matter who you are, you step on that first tee box and it just hits you, I think, differently to any other course out there. Now, I ended up choosing the old course for the 18th hole. So that then actually, by a kind of process of elimination, really, I then sort of reverted back and actually ended up coming to a sort of different take on it. But that's maybe how I started, was like, right, okay, I know I want St Andrews as my 18th. That's kind of the first hole almost on the jigsaw puzzle. And I was kind of going back and forth between 1 and 18. Tom, I think you picked 1 from the old course, didn't you?
Yeah, for exactly the same reasons that you just said. I went with the exact same approach as you, Bruce. I'm looking back at the first iteration. I've got it on a spreadsheet in front of me. I've gone through 5 iterations of my 18. There are 10 holes that have remained true throughout all of it. And I think how I started it is I wrote down 1 to 18, and I was like, I know I want this here. I know I want this here. I know I want this here. You know, and then you build the rest around it. But it does lead you to having some holes from some courses which are great holes, but not my favorite hole on that particular course, which I think we'll talk about when we get into it. But let's go through our first holes. So, yeah. Sam, what did you rock with your first hole?
Well, actually, my opening hole was actually one of those principles. So I just love a golf course that has a soft opener. I think no one wants to walk off the first hole of any round with a bogey. And that might be an unrealistic expectation, but I think it should be a pretty forgiving opener. And I thought, well, you know, there's a few obvious candidates in there for me. So there was, you know, obviously the old course. I actually thought the first at St George's Hill was a beautiful opening golf hole. Actually, I think the bunkering and stuff that was in there. There's loads.
But it's not your principle, as you said there, about a soft opener, is it?
That's not a soft opener.
I don't know. I think funny story, when we played St George's Hill, we teed off the 10th. So by the time I got to the first, it was our 10th hole, and I was absolutely flushing it, and I was on a hot streak. So, I mean, yeah, it felt very easy, but I think that was one of the few times I've been absolutely smoking the golf ball in the last 6 months.
Can't help pigeonhole. It's early in 2022, but we can't help pigeonholing a reference to Sam playing decent golf once into the pod early on. So
we've got to get it in early doors. Best foot forward. So I went with Rye. I thought Rye's an outstanding and a massively underrated opening golf hole. You know, it's a half par. It's a great match play opener as well because it's.
Can you just remind me what runs down the left hand side of the hole of the first hole at Rye?
I don't hit the ball left that often. I generally hit wipey fades. So
it is out of bounds.
That's no good either on the first at Rye. To be
completely honest, I think it is relatively forgiving.
Yeah, it's a generous opening hole. I think by your standard that you've set there, it's a good one to pick. I just don't get it because that Rye has so many wonderful holes, particularly short holes, and I think it's a crime to leave those out. In favour of picking the first.
Sam's had a shot.
It's a really unorthodox pick.
I think that's
a stinker.
Yeah. I think the credibility of this whole exercise has been put into serious
jeopardy
by that choice. No, I do love Rye obviously, and I think the first hole there, as you say, it's a good soft opener. But yeah, I just feel like there's so many holes at Rye, short holes that you'd want to get in your Eclectic 18. It just feels like you're missing out there if you pick the first. You tell you what. Instead of me giving my opening hole as well, let's maybe go in 3. I think Sam, after that pick and just sort of opening up Pandora's box, we just want to know the rest of the flow of your round now because we need to ask some searching questions here. So how about you rattle through your composite 18?
I'm going to give you the composite 18 in real summary. Okay, so par 71, it's measuring 6,371 from all of the white tees. Opening 9, par 36, back 9, par 35. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a gradual and steady kind of walk up to the difficulty. I thought the opening 9 should be a little bit softer, if I'm being really honest. And the back 9, particularly the closing stretch, should play a lot tougher. Because I just think that's how I enjoy playing a golf course anyway. I hate blisteringly tough openers and the opening holes because everyone wants to kind of get into their flow. Now, the other thing I put in here, because some of these things are key because it's why things are where they are. I wanted the par threes, 1, to be well spaced, and 2, to be pretty different in terms of the yardage. So I had a rule. I didn't want to pull the same club on a par 3 if it was a windless day. So I'm going to jump straight into it. And if you've slated me for Rye as an opening hole, you're going to slate me for the second, which is the old course.
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing, man? What are you doing here?
I'm not gonna slate him because I think the second at the old course is a really, really good hole. But
I agree. It's a good hole. I totally agree.
But I don't think it's an easy golf hole. In fact, I think it's a rock hard golf hole if you get yourself in the wrong spot. It's almost impossible.
I think it's an enjoyable golf hole, okay? So look, the second was in there for me as being what I thought was a particularly good hole. I thought it's very strategic for what it's worth. Like if you feel like you want to take it on early doors, you can throttle one up the right. You can bail well left. I think it's a really interesting green. I really like the second. Personally, I think when you get on the tee, it's lovely looking back at the town.
Bruce is ready to go.
It's amazing.
Bruce is ready to attack.
It's brilliant. Yeah, I agree with you. And again, it's like sort of similar comments that I made on Rye. Like, I love the second hole on the old course. I kind of agree with Tom in that depending on where that tee box is positioned, it looks sort of it's actually deceptively open. It doesn't really look like that from the tee. It looks like you're kind of hitting over gorse, and there's quite a bit of gorse on the right, not much room. And it opens up, so it's actually not visually the most sort of straightforward tee shot. I don't think, maybe not fulfilling that sort of generous category. But the issue I have with it again is the sort of same one I had with the first hole at Rye, which is the first hole on the old course, the 18th hole on the old course, the 17th, the 16th are all just such out and out kind of incredible holes that evoke such strong emotions from
Bruce,
people.
you just got to attack Sam on every selection.
Yeah.
No?
Well, no, I'm just going in hard early. I'm just like that's my gripe with it. But
I mean, I'm 1/9 in. I'm 1/9 in, but I will persist if that's okay. Now 3 and 4. And this is where I will talk you around on it. 3 and 4 were almost coupled together, so there was a few contenders. The reason I picked Prestwick as number 3 as a par 5 was for the simple reason I didn't want to have 2 ludicrously short par 4s back to back. So 3 and 4. 3 is Prestwick. Fabulous hole, Cardinal, 477, par 5.
Love it.
Magic sleeper face bunkering, so much great rumpling down to the green. The 4th hole I've gone with is St George's Hill, which I thought was amazing, simply because you could hit one of any 14 clubs off the tee. I'd back myself to make a par, even if I bashed putter 60 yards. It's still you're still in the hole.
Well, the way you flush it'd be easy, wouldn't it?
I'm still hitting it good by that point around there, to be fair. So I ended up picking up Prestwick and George's Hill. I did quite fancy Castle Stuart third, to be honest with you, and I know that's in some other people's numbers. Now, I'm hoping there's no arguments here, but the 5th at Sunningdale New, I think we'll all agree, is an absolutely world-class par 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is...
You've rescued yourself a little bit, I'd say.
Good, right. And this is the main thing. As long as it's got Bruce's approval, I'm absolutely chuffed. Now, St Enedoc's 6th hole, I just think is fabulous. It's exciting for the simple reason it's an extremely exciting golf hole. It's fun from the tee. You kind of tee up to you sort of play up to a sort of short layup distance on the right-hand side of the fairway before this kind of huge cavernous bunker in front of you. And then there's kind of the fairway then meanders off down to the left of that bunker, which, with the wind in the right direction, with a good strike, you could probably play down to, and a brilliant green with a sort of a bit of an amphitheatre. 6, if I'm honest, was actually a pretty tricky hole for me to pick. There were no obvious contenders. So really oddly, I didn't come up with many. Sunningdale Old being the obvious kind of contender
really?
there.
I thought 6 was quite easy for me. When we get on,
because that's the thing. I've got notes of where I picked these holes, and some of them I've got 6 or 7 contenders, and some I've down to 2 or 3. 7, 8, 9. I go Sunningdale Old, wonderful mid-length par 4, Royal Aberdeen par 3, 147 yards, littered with bunkers. I think stunning golf hole, and then the 9th at Royal County Down,
which is the best golf hole in the world.
Yeah, I've not played it, but you guys have both got that in there.
You're putting me down on it.
It's
a banger.
I'm happy with that. I'm actually content with that sort of back 7 holes. Yeah.
So that's quite a. I'd say that's.
I shouldn't say back 7 holes. I'd say the next 7 holes. It's good.
The metric. Are you just successful in this if Bruce doesn't argue with you. Is that
Maybe
the
that
level-
should
the
be how
metric of
we
success?
rate all of our guest Eclectic 18 pods, is Bruce can rate them, and then Bruce will sort of sit above them and say, well, actually, I really rate that
No,
one.
you're wrong there.
And then
Yeah.
we send our guests off with a flea in their ear. Now,
Tom, let's just not forget that you made criticism as well of those
No,
early
no,
selections. You just made it first, and I then kind of added. Yeah.
So just to round up that front nine, Sam, par
36, 3,178 yards, which I would say is an
relatively short.
extremely, I mean, that's not long. I personally don't like really long golf holes. I don't get mad. And if I'm honest, looking at
it's strange because he's a flusher, so you think he'd have no problem just flushing driver 3-iron in. But
you'd think that.
Sorry, he doesn't go
would.
3-iron. A driver.
I can't hit three iron. Yeah. But do you know what? There is a consistent theme with all of ours, guys, where I thought they're all quite, certainly nothing more than a moderate length golf course. Which is pretty interesting. I'll rattle through the back nine quickly. Valderrama 10. Thought it was a class
strange.
par 4.
Bit of a strange one, I thought there.
Okay,
strange.
I like
Bruce is
that
back for attack. I like
because
it.
Again, decisions off the tee. So a lot of these holes, I picked mainly on the merits of, is there a bit of decision making? You can lay up down to the left short of the bunker, and you can play from higher ground. You can gun it down the bottom, and you've got a tough wedge up the hill.
Is that not the one with the water on the right, though? So it's like kind of the water's on the right, dog leg sweeps up to the right, and if you miscue your approach shot, like the ball's rolling back 100 yards, isn't it? And might even go in the lake. That one?
Yeah. Now, I will agree this is where you get on a little bit of a sticky wicket with this stuff. So there are better 10th holes out there. I'll concede that for sure. The reason I picked Valderrama's 10th, there's a couple of things. One of them, it usually follows a really good vodka and orange at the turn.
That's a fair reason. I mean that.
And I always think life's pretty good when you're teeing off with a nice plastic cup with a logo on and a vodka and orange on the go. And I just thought
a screwdriver, brilliant.
Getting to do that in October last year was pretty good fun. And I just thought there was a lot of good memories around that hole. That's all. I mean, I get it. That's not architecturally, but speaking, maybe the greatest golf hole in the lineup. But I just have very fond memories of the 10th at Valderrama.
Yeah, that's fair. 11, okay, you've picked Castle Stewart. This is classic.
Par 3. Can we agree?
Yeah. No. We can agree that the one of the strong reasons you've picked this is you nearly made a hole in one and had a tap in birdie the first time you played it. But now that we've covered that off, there's some really nice backdrops and it's really nice, aesthetically pleasing par 3. So that's fine. Yeah, but I really wish you just been up front and said you hit a great 9-iron in there.
No, I wasn't actually going to say.
if we're talking of memories,
yards. It was 7. I like that golf hole a lot. Kings Barnes. I don't know whether we go with the spoiler now.
Go for it.
So Kings Barnes 12th is the hole that we have all picked, which I think in itself is quite an interesting observation because
I think it's the only one, isn't it?
Yeah,
we all picked.
And there's a few contenders for me. There's 12th at Hoylake, 12th at the Old Course, Birkdale. There were some really good contenders in there for 12th hole. But yet we've all come back to Kings Barnes, which I thought was interesting. The only golf hole that's happened. Then we go North Berwick 13, Pitt, class golf hole, fantastic. Starting to get very demanding now. So this stretch of holes I think is really tough. Followed by Foxy, the 14th at Dornoch. So bunkerless par 3. Green falls off, all round sort of front. It's hard to get it up onto the putting surface. It's tough off the tee. You go through the back, you're in trouble. The whole lot. I think that's an absolutely wonderful golf hole. The 15th at Blackwell, I don't think is the strongest golf hole on our course. But I do think it's
definitely up there. I love the 15th at Blackwell.
So for anyone that's not played, the 15th at Blackwell is kind of on the run home of the last 5, which are all tough par 4s. All of them got disaster written around them, but the green on the 15th is just, it's seriously severe, isn't it? So you kind of have to think about where you want to leave your tee shot, and then you have to hit a really well executed approach shot. If you're above the hole, you're in real difficulty. And I thought it was just an exciting golf hole. And I had to make sure I got one in from Blackwell. So I didn't look for the space on the scorecard, but I kind of did. Do you know what I mean? 16th, Rawport Rush. absolutely world-class par 3, extremely demanding. We're right at the sharp end of the course now. You've got to step up and execute. There's absolutely no other way. Although interestingly, when we did it, no, you have. You've got to step up and
hand, this is where it starts to get tough.
Love it.
You have, but that's the thing. You know what I mean? You wouldn't have that for me as like a second or third hole because it just wouldn't work. But it works brilliantly on the 16th because you're in a flow. It's like that's the time to step up and hit a good golf shot. Really interestingly, when we were over recently at Portrush, Gary, the head pro at Portrush, played a few holes with him, and he sort of pointed out this little swale left of the green, and he said that's like Bobby Locke's pit. So when Bobby Locke played there, he just fired everything well left of the green. Everything feeds into this little pit, and then should give you a sort of fairly benign 2-putt from there. Or a 3-putt in my case, as it played out. 17th at Carnoustie, I think we all agreed was an outstanding golf hole. I thought it was a brilliant hole personally. And then the one that needs a bit of discussion, which is the 18th at Palmetto. Tom, you've not played Palmetto. Bruce, you have, correct?
Yeah. I nearly fell off my chair when I saw you pick that one at number 18.
Why? So why? Because I'm interested. Why?
Well, okay, if I'm going to just go on the sort of do a bit of amateur psychoanalysis here on the basis of what you've been saying, you're thinking, oh, it's 18, you're walking up, everyone's sort of looking at you, see if you've got a good score coming. They're out there sort of on the veranda and they've got their sea breezes in hand and you're just absolutely sort of, salivating because you can't wait to get that sea breeze in hand as well. And aren't we all just having a lot of fun? But it's a 306 yards sort of par 4 that is relatively benign going uphill. And
that's
again,
bollocks.
There's just some really nice. There are so many great holes at Palmetto, I think, that have more drama or strategy than 18.
You couldn't be more wrong on that one, I think. So I think
if you're a good driver of the ball, you just nail driver at it.
Mate, there's no room down there. There's absolutely no room. There's out of bounds. 10 yards left. 10 yards left if you don't catch it. There's trees that pinch in towards the green. There's a really generous layup with a 6-iron, which will leave you a wedge in.
So that's the other option.
And so therefore, it's a brilliant match play finishing hole. So one of the things I put down there was, a good match play finishing hole for me was quite important. So I thought,
but you can hit that 6-iron anywhere.
Not anywhere you can't. You've still got to hit a reasonably good 6-iron, but it's a softer layup. I'll give you. If you want to gun 3-wood or driver at the green or anything, you've got to think about where you want to do and where you're at in the match. So I think it's a brilliant golf hole.
But is there a lot going on in that green complex, like
huge
undulations and you think? Okay,
because it's really narrow. So the green's extremely narrow. It all feeds back to front quite severely, if I remember right. And if you're in the traps right or left, or if you're in one of the shortly mown runoff areas, it's nigh on impossible to get on the green. So you just look like an absolute fool in front of the clubhouse if you missed it, because you could very easily just spend the next 20 minutes going backwards and forwards over the green. I think it's a really interesting golf hole.
To be fair, I don't remember it like that. And I guess
you obviously played it well.
Well, also I was fairly jet lagged as well. That's the other thing. We'll talk about it more. I guess we got into the. I can part that discussion if you want. Well, no, I'll just mention it now. I think when you are picking courses further afield, I picked a couple of courses from America as well, like you, Sam, and I just think like if you're playing these courses once and you're a little bit jet lagged, it actually can become quite hard to remember some of them. I don't know whether that's just complete blasphemy to say to all kind of course architects or golf course enthusiasts, reviewers, whatever, but I actually find it quite hard to remember some holes of courses that I've only played once, and you're jet lagged or tired or whatever, or it's just tricky, isn't it? So that's why, I'm not going to die on the hill over your choices at 18th at Palmetto. I just didn't remember it being as strategic and as fiddly as you did.
We'll get some pro visualizer up and I'll send it over. I think maybe I'm simply making more of this than there was, but I remember it being an outstanding hole. So am I right in thinking 1 and 2 I was massively down marked for, but the remaining, and 10th at Valderrama, but the remaining 15 were pretty strong?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't like Palmetto. The 14 was strong. Palmetto, he wasn't.
I'll give myself 14 and a half successful picks.
Is that what you get? 14 and a half points. Well done. It's pretty good, actually.
But I think, and then I look back at what I tried to achieve with it. Spacing of par 3s, tick. Variety of par 3s and length, tick. Soft opener. Okay, you didn't think so, but good match play finisher, tick. Demanding shot requirements on the closing 6, absolutely. Lots of strategic challenge from the tee, tick. I had to concede on the symmetry of par from both 9s. which I don't know why that's important. Maybe that's just a product of the fact I've grown up playing golf at Blackwell, which has symmetry of par, but I quite like that. Didn't want it to be overly long. I wanted to incorporate a lot of half par holes. Big shout out to Half Par Kid, but a big fan of those. And return to the house wherever possible. So I think I managed to get a few holes in the return to the house as well, which is always a nice opportunity when you're playing a golf course.
Yeah.
Which holes return to the house?
Ninth, the county down comes back.
That's it, though, isn't it?
So hang on.
You just got a solid 2 loops. Yeah, just checking. You didn't dip back at 13 or something, ready to.
Blackwell gets you close back. I did also think about, a bit of variety across the green sites. I think different lengths. So I desperately didn't want to put similar length golf holes back to back, and I wanted to think that you were constantly pulling different clubs into holes because that makes for a lot of excitement. So, you think 15th at Blackwell's playing sort of like dogleg right, wedge up the hill, and then you play Calamity, which is just a 200 yards of your best. Carnoustie 17 plays different. So I was trying to think about that stuff.
I found when I was looking at my 18, and certainly when I was looking at the threes, that, a lot of these par threes that would have started shorter have now just over time, sort of through entropy, have become longer. And a lot of these par threes are all roughly the same length. Did you find that when you were looking at threes? Even ones that you knew weren't supposed to be. Blackwell 13th is an interesting one. It's designed to be played from about 150. It's now 180 something. But then I think most par threes gravitate towards the 180 mark. I found that anyway, and certainly the ones that I was looking at. Yeah,
maybe. I think from depends. Maybe not. I mean, by selection, I really don't. I mean, the exception being Calamity for me. Like, I don't rate loads of par threes that are overly long. I feel like the 16th at Carnoustie, which is on your card, isn't it, Tom? That's...
Hey, no spoilers. Come on.
Well, let's go
2
into
mine
yours
you're giving
then.
away now.
Okay. Well, one of them was
I think the time's right for Tom just to rattle through yours.
Give us your overview.
Okay, I've got to beat 14.5 Bruce points. Bruce obviously gets 18 points on his own course because that's just how it works. Okay, my course. Let's get through it. So I've gone first at the old, most magical tee shot in history.
Yeah.
1 point.
1 out of 1.
Yeah.
Well done, Tom. You're off to a good start here.
Dornoch 2, par 3.
Very good golf hole.
It's a very good golf hole. It's a very hard golf hole. I was trying to achieve not trying to replicate par. So I didn't want to put too many par 4s back to back, par 3s or par 5s back to back. So I was trying to change par every hole on my card. Couldn't achieve it all the time, but that's part of the reason why some of these are in. So Dornoch, second, par 3. Bruce, do I get a tick or?
Yeah.
I'll take it. I mean, it was a soft. I'd say that's a
I think it's a pretty chronic. If we were being hyper picky here, I think it's a very difficult golf hole to play that early in the round, and I think it is.
Yeah, but when you see what you're about
with
to
any
play,
level of wind,
me,
it's insanely tough.
Yeah, but then I give you my third, Castle Stewart, 305 yard par 4. Loads of options off the tee, like all the options off the tee, but there is fraught with danger because if you go long, you're in the Firth of, where is it?
The Murray
Firth.
Murray Firth.
You might not escape with a lob wedge that's fully intact.
Yeah,
interesting because they're two Highlands as well, back to back. I'm curious, would you have picked if you were allowed another Dornoch pick? Would you have had the third from Dornoch in there over the third at Castle Stewart?
No. Castle Stewart, third at Castle Stewart was one I always. So for me, my ones that were on my tee sheet like straight away were the first hole. I'll tell you the ones that are like I built it round, but Castle Stewart was one of the ones I always wanted. I thought that hole's cracking.
That stayed in there, nice.
Weirdly, I've always played it badly, but it's just such a great golf hole.
See, that's good because you haven't got the bias as Sam's got in, where he steps up, flags a 9-9 130 to a foot, and says, "This is great golf."
To be fair, I'm astounded.
Let's face it, there are lots of people out there.
I'm astounded. You think that's a bad golf hole? That has got every space on that. I'm
astounded that Sam didn't put that in because I think from memory, didn't he drive the green on that hole? And I'd a putt for eagle.
Yeah.
Where?
So Castle Stewart third.
Which hole?
The
Oh,
third.
yeah, I did actually. Yeah,
So I'm amazed that didn't
good
make
memory,
it
yeah.
into your. Like, we have to redo
It was-
the
I
whole
didn't
thing
drive
there.
it. Sorry, Tom, I hit 3 wood actually, but
No,
anyway, let's
come on.
not digress.
No, you drive out your boots and
I think you hit. Didn't you hit a forward or an iron? You went long, didn't you?
The first time I played, I hit driver into the Firth and took a gouge out my lob wedge, but yeah, it's all good. Okay, fourth hole, Thomas.
Cruden Bay.
Yeah, good.
It's a
really
quality
nice.
par three.
Yeah,
It's got a few different lengths you can play it for. The back sticks is 196. It's just execute shot. If you're short, you're going to be 60 yards short because it all just runs down into a bowl, and then you get Les Durno standing on your shoulder going, "Come on, Tom, just putt it up there." Well, I don't have that in the locker. I don't have a 60-yard putt, Les. So no, quality par three. I really wanted to put St George's Hill in, the fourth of St George's Hill, but I've basically got 3. I would have had 3, 4, and 5 as all short par 4s, which I couldn't do. So the fourth at Cruden Bay. Fifth, Royal Portrush. Quality golf hole. Just absolutely quality golf hole.
Say no more.
370 yard from the backs. That's the one in the open. They're like all driving. When you stand there at 370 away and look at it.
This isn't drivable.
Doesn't feel drivable.
This can't be the one.
I think they do move the tee forward to about 330, and that's when they're all sort of just spanking it on. But fifth at Royal Portrush. Sixth at Sunningdale New.
Yeah, great
par
hole.
5. The sort of half moon shaped, the crescent moon shaped hole.
Great, like stunning visuals on the drive there. Elevated tee box, just like how much of the heather are you going to kind of cut off, sort of thing, isn't it? Yeah.
I might be getting this wrong, and I'm sure you'll know if I am, but that's one of the post-Colt holes, I think. Colt had some holes that were further down in that little area.
Might have done, yeah.
But no, I agree. It's an amazing golf hole, that.
Par 5. Seventh Rye.
Yeah.
With a rye brows that's got the little man looking at you in front of it with a big gaping bunker.
Superb hole.
Yeah, great par 3. Eighth, Muirfield.
Yeah.
Interesting one. It's a great golf hole. It's not my favourite on Muirfield. Muirfield's one of those courses that's just so strong. Muirfield Golf Club is one of those courses that's so strong. You could have,
Muirfield Golf Club.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Little wink. If you know, you know. It's so strong.
You're not talking about the one out in Ohio, are you? Just to clarify.
No. It's so strong that you can just put. You could have put any loads of Muirfield holes in, and it kind of just. You need those really strong courses to kind of plug the gaps in your car. I found.
Yeah.
Where you're just trying to sort of fit it all in. Ninth, Royal County Down, same as Sam. Great par 4. Par 34. It's sub 3,000 yards at 2,992. But it does
it's a
have
lot of fun, that.
3 3s and 1 5. So that's probably the reason why.
And I will say all of the threes are very demanding. So whilst it's giving up some yardage for the longer holes, I would be amazed to think that, even the top flight players out there would actually be bringing that to its knees on the front 9, because those par 3s alone are going to find, plenty of bogeys.
You're not covering them in 9 strokes. No way, are you?
No, not in a month of Sundays.
All of my 3s, I think, are rock hard. It's just how it's kind of.
Do you enjoy that though? That's interesting. But do you you've got all of your 3s are rock hard. Without exception.
When we go into the back 9, I don't know. It's just the way the chips are fallen, I suppose. They're just holes that I think are really good. If they were shorter, that would be better. But visually, the way the green sites are, the way the hole plays, I just thought they were all really good.
Takes on to back 9.
10th, Sunningdale Old.
Mega.
4.
Yeah, see that talk about bringing you back to the loop. That there is an epic hole, isn't it? The sort of on the tee box, another great elevated tee box, looking down towards the hut and the sort of beckoning sausage sandwich, coffee or something stronger. You're like, I can look at that even though I'm going to play quite demanding, quite a demanding hole, or certainly one that looked quite demanding off the tee. I think, super choice.
I've got 10 out of 10 from Bruce so far, I think.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
11th, Royal Liverpool, par 3.
Very close to getting in mind this one.
Not played it, so can't comment. But
12th, Kings Barnes. We've talked about it. 13th, Blackwell, par 3. I don't think so. This is where I've got a little bit of a struggle here because it's got a longer tee box, but I chose to do it slightly differently from Sam. I chose to pick the tee box that I wanted to play it from. Not because it's my 18, and I thought I don't care. I'm going to play it where I want to play it from. So I chose the 160 yardage. You can go back to 180 at Blackwell, but for those of the people who haven't played it, it's just a very, very demanding par 3. It's very, very shallow. It's quite a wide green, very shallow. The green's very undulating from front left to sort of from left to right. There's a big break down it, and it's guarded by a brook. It's a very, very good par 3.
And the pin location does change how the hole alters as well, which I think is another good attribute of a par 3. So the fact you can play on 2 days and hit 2 totally different golf shots at it, I think that's a real strength.
Yeah, it's a good golf hole. 14th, North Berwick, perfection. I've always played it in the complete antithesis of perfection.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, that is an interesting one because that's sandwiched between the pit, which Sam chose with the very quirky wall, the almost iconic Instagram sort of selfie from North Berwick, isn't it? And then the Redan, 15. But why do you choose perfection? Blind approach, isn't it? You kind of go up and then it's sort of down to...
You've got that tee shot that it's like super narrow, but you could probably do with like a 5-iron because it's not a long hole at all it's 374. And you play up and over that ridge, then down into the green that sits down sort of by the sea. And it's just out there and you're just playing over the top of that bunker on the left. And it's just quality golf hole. You need 2 good shots at it. I think every time I've played
374.
Yeah, sure.
It plays much longer than that whenever I've played it. Maybe we've just had the wind against.
I think the wind comes off the sea though, doesn't it? So it's
and there's a few blind shots in there, the approach shot in there included. And I think, blind shots get an unfairly bad rap in the game. And actually there's a bit of excitement there when you hit the approach shot into that golf hole and think you've genuinely got no idea, have you really, whether it's good, bad or indifferent. Yeah. And there's a bit of excitement, I think, to that.
I like that. And you'll see there's a little bit of that coming in as well for me. You've got the 15th of Porthcawl, which is just a brutally difficult golf hole.
Yeah. Any 4 there is different gravy.
Just straight up the hill.
No, it's down a hill, and then you've got 2 cavernous bunkers, like huge bunkers to the right of the fairway.
But you play up on the approach, don't you?
Play up the approach, yeah. It's a hard golf hole, but
because the way the land goes as well over those bunkers, it dips down again before making the final ascent to the green. So actually, it's not like it's just moderately uphill, but you can still get 20 yards of run out the ball if you're a bit way back. I mean, it's 466 yards. You've got to absolutely button 2 golf shots to even think about pulling putter for your third.
Yeah, it's a hard. I went with Sam as I like it to be hard, and the 18th just to give you a pressure release. 16th. I mean, I'm happy for you to slate me on this one, Bruce. Carnoustie, 245 par 3. This is in the ilk of Sam. I've only ever parred it, and I've played it a couple of times, and I've only ever parred it. I mean, that's better than Tom Watson did.
Was a par 4, wasn't it? Years before.
It was about 30 yards longer.
That's better than Tom Watson did. So we'll forget everything's to do with Tom context. Watson never parred it, did he? Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
I think it is a good golf hole, but I mean, look at those last 3 you've played. If you go 4-4-3 down 14, 15, 16, you are hitting the ball so bloody good, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then you've got to back it up on 17. Prestwick, 17.
Great hole. That is a great hole.
This was one of the first on the list for me. And Carnoustie, I'm with you, Sam, for 17. I thought Carnoustie 17 was amazing. But I just couldn't elbow out Prestwick 17. And
there's something iconic about the oldest hole in championship golf and all that sort of stuff. And, there's the Sahara bunkers, and there's a lot to that, which I think is, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah. And then 18, I've gone abroad just to, similar to Sam's thing, just give it a bit of risk reward down 18. I've got Pebble Beach, which is a fairly easy 5, if that's what you want to if that's what you want to do. It's just hit 3 safe golf shots and make 2 decent putts. But you can really bite off a lot of the ocean on that. Where you got the iconic hole there, the tree on the right, the wall going down the left. Lovely, and it's good. It's a good golf hole. So that's where I've gone with to finish.
I'm surprised by 18, if I'm being really honest.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I think it's the archetypal, and it's not like, oh, here he is, he's on his bloody golden age, banter bus here. But it is like it's a very sort of stereotypical championship course closing hole. I've not played Pebble Beach. You have. I suspect it is a brilliant golf hole. But yeah, it's a surprising pick more than anything.
Do you know what I wanted to put in? But I was constrained because for 18 I wanted to put in West Cliffs in Portugal. But it's a par 4.
You should have done it.
It's a par 4, which brings it down to a par 68. Finishes with back-to-back par 4s, and it's also rock hard. And I just thought, it doesn't fit. It needs to be a bit easier. Another notable mention I think had to be, and I really tried hard to get this in, but I just couldn't get it in, was the Berkshire Reds 10th. I really wanted to get that in. I just couldn't figure out a way to do it. But I also went a little step further than you two boys. I managed to put a clubhouse and a halfway house in as well.
Okay.
That I haven't picked from other courses. The clubhouse being New Zealand and the halfway house being Renaissance. So.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Can't argue with those.
Thanks for doing extra homework and making us all look bad. Good. Right, so I think I agree with you. If you put West Cliffs in at number 18, there's severe question marks over anyone who goes and plays your golf, whether they actually want to take the game up again after that finish, because they'd just be so unbelievably just destroyed if they have anything other than perfect ball striking and putting and chipping coming in. That they might feel a little bit disarmed. But that is superb. Yeah, that's
superb.
What's my
score, Bruce?
I'd probably give you 16.
Whew.
I'd say.
Okay.
Smoking.
I'd give you 16. I don't know if I was fully convinced by 14, 15 switchery. Oh yeah, I think it was very solid, very solid 16 or 18. Yeah, 16 out of 18. 16, yeah, it's good. Very good.
It definitely plays tougher, this one. Yours, I mean, that because it's a par 69 as well. And like we said, the
3s are hard.
Tournament Pro X is going to be quite happy with, 32, 33 on a good day there. Back 9, Christ, it's just hold on for dear life, isn't it? I would say your average everyman golfer here could easily notch up something beginning in the 50s on that back 9. It's like there's terminal danger at every hole pretty much.
So I suppose if you look at it when you look at you play your home track and you play the medal round and you're like, I know I can get birdies on 6, 7, and 8 or whatever. If you look at the back 9, it doesn't scream birdie fest, does it?
Yeah,
I think Kings Barnes might be the only one really that you're like, that I might have a chance there.
And for all of that, for all the bashing about Sam flagged it on the 11th at Castle Stewart, or Tom's parred the 16th at Carnoustie every time he's played it. I actually think there's something to be said for that. Some of this is about picking the 18 courses, but 18 holes and their favourite courses, but also there's enjoyment to this as well. So you've got to pick the holes that have the fond memories for you. There's no point picking holes where, every time I've played it, I've had the ball in pocket, because I can't honestly tell you I've actually really enjoyed those golf holes.
Exactly. You went and played a bucket list course. You went and played a course, I don't know, Pine Valley or a Cypress Point, and you just chopped it round there. You simply can't enjoy it to the fullest extent there, because, as you say, it's like, who wants to go and chop it round? It absolutely plays in decision making. I don't think anyone can be so objective that they just, because otherwise you'd literally just walk a course, wouldn't you? You'd literally just walk it, or you'd follow a pro round, and it's just that's not the way this game is played. It's definitely totally valid. For all the jokes I make at your expense, Sam, if you play a course well, you play a hole well, then it's totally understandable that it kind of is more likely to feature in your composite 18.
How does that shape up with yours then, Tom?
Without further ado,
here we go.
This is what 18 out of 18 looks like.
So I've gone to a slightly different routine to set. If Sam went down the sort of easy opener, gentle kind of ease them into the round, and Tom was going for the sort of absolutely, rock hard finish, I've gone just for a rock hard start, really. I think not really intentionally. I think, I'll just go through it. I don't think it's, as Sam said there, ball in pocket golf is obviously, it's not really golf, is it? And I think the key determining factor there is if you just have tight tee shot after tight tee shot where there's really no room for error. And I don't think this is quite like that. I just think it's easy to just rack up a few bogeys here, but I'll roll into it anyway. So the first hole I picked was Prestwick. I mentioned earlier that I did really want to pick the old course, but I've saved that for the 18th, so spoiler alert there. And so thinking about the first holes that weren't the old at St Andrews, I thought Prestwick's just a fantastic one because, again, it's that close proximity to the clubhouse, the sort of the happy memories of having a drink, in the big room there, having a coffee and kind of meeting your oppo before you go out and play a foursomes match. And also pulling an iron on a first tee box. I actually think there's something quite cool about that.
I'm going to stop you there because if you hit the hosels, and everything to the right hand side of the hole is a train line.
Yeah,
pulling an iron on the first tee is absolutely petrifying.
Okay, if you suffer with the shanks, then I can understand there's some concern there. But unfortunately, I've not picked this composite 18 course on the basis of making it shank friendly. So. Yeah, I think it's just a lovely opening hole. It's quite demanding, but hitting an iron down there or a wood, and then a sort of semi-blind approach with the railway on the right. I just think it really just sets the tone for the rest of Prestwick, which is, a good demanding course, but also, boatloads of fun and quirk thrown in as well. So that was my first hole, 346 yard par 4. Second was Rye. Again, I think the short holes at Rye are amazing. It's really hard to pick between. You picked the 7th there, Tom, which again I could have easily picked. I just think that the
just
second
to jump in on you, I think that's my worst par 3 at Rye.
The second,
yeah, I think I like all the others above that.
I mean,
when you say
quite a few people say they dislike the 17.
They are all amazing par 3s of Rye.
Yeah,
I was going to say the weaker ones are the it's almost like the least good, isn't it? Yeah, I've actually not played the second ever, and because of the way the course plays, I've only ever played it as foursomes, and I've only ever walked straight to the third tee. So I've never actually even stood on the tee there. I couldn't actually tell you what the hole looks like, but you can tell it's a class hole.
Yeah, it's demanding because it's a really thin green, but it's one of those where it's almost like if you hit the green, you got a good birdie chance. And if you don't hit the green, you got to have a really good short game to get it up and down, and maybe a smidge of luck so that you haven't got an impossible lie. But it's just, I just think it's a really fair, wonderful par 3, and it comes early in the round. And I think it's just if you knock it on the green there with a relatively solid strike, which is all you really can do to hit the green. It settles you down, I think, for the round. You're like, okay, this is, you can kind of get into a routine with it. So the third hole, I picked Royal Dornoch, 413 yards, par 4. Maybe you'd say it's a tougher hole, but I just don't think, of all the holes at Dornoch, I get why you picked the second, Tom, because it's like quirky and it's a really sort of challenging, almost kind of unique volcano shaped green. But I just think once you get through that, you get through the first couple of holes at Dornoch, which maybe you're just like, okay, sort of the first time you play it, what's going on here? You're sort of feeling it out, and then you walk down the path and through the gorse leading to the third tee, and you stand on the third tee box, and it all just like opens up in front of you. And I think the last time we played, it was springtime when you've got all the gorse in like yellow bloom, whatever it's called, and you look at and it's just breathtaking, like just one of the most breathtaking vistas I think in golf. And that's what I think has informed some of my as a reveal, great way of putting it there. One of the factors that definitely I think influenced some of the choices I made here, as far as picking favorite holes. It's brilliant when you have a hole that's really strategic and there's some real, excitement and quirk to the green complexes or the clubs you hit off the tee and bunkering. I also think that just having a stunning vista and backdrop is something that can really, really make you kind of fall in love with the hole straight away. And that hole at Dornoch is one of those for me. Fourth at Royal St George's, pretty stern par 4, particularly if you play it off the open tees and you're trying to drive over that huge cavernous bunker. But again, it's a very, very stern test of golf, but huge amounts of fun because a lot of the sort of embarrassment you can cause yourself is up by the green. It's got an amazing green complex, 2 solid shots to hit it. George's actually was one of those where there's a few different holes I was thinking of picking. But 4, I think, it's hard to look past.
Sam and I are yet to play George's. It's
so you can't really come back.
It's on the hit list. I can't really.
There's not much to come back on. Really. So
I do hear
without being that, I saw it
amazing.
on TV and I like it type chat. Eric from the
You've
Flyers
got
Club.
loads that we haven't played yet. Like this is just it's unfair, really. But keep going. We're on 5.
Sunnydown New 5th hole. Sam, you picked that, so I can count on you being in my camp. But again, just like what a great dramatic tee shot. Yeah,
I'll let you finish the next, and then we'll revisit whether or not I'm still in your camp.
Okay. New South Wales 6th hole, par 3. Now back-to-back par 3s. Some people might say, "What's that all about?" I'm actually not overly concerned. And before one of you says, "Oh, well, it's violated a core principle of course architecture," not that I've played it, but Cypress Point. Go speak to Alison McKenzie if you've got an issue with back-to-back par 3s because 15, 16 there known to be pretty good from what I hear. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Old Tom at Cleve Hill. There you go. Another course that Alison McKenzie famously worked on. So that's probably the signature hole, I'd say, at New South. It is undergoing or has maybe undergone a bit of remodeling just due to kind of coastal erosion. And you're essentially just playing over the ocean, over the kind of craggy shoreline.
So what I would say on that is, just on your coming back there, I'd be like, well, they're basically the same yardage. Okay, there's 10 yards in it. Cypress Point, there's nearly 100 yards in it. So the shot's totally different. So I would say I don't mind back-to-back par 3s, to be honest with you. Like, I think that's, I enjoy par 3s probably more than any other par of golf hole, including 6s, which I am yet to play and hopefully will never. But I would say they're quite similar distance and they're all carry, really. They're all pretty, if you were being a purist here and you really wanted to go off on your architecture train, you'd be like, well, they're both pretty heroic golf shots back to back at quite a tricky yardage. Just
I take
an
your point
observation.
on that. Yeah, I something that maybe we could look at more is moving the yardage around, because we've talked about, the cookie jar mixer, for example, we had at Blackwell, where you can move some of the tee boxes around. I don't really see an issue with moving that around. And there I'd possibly move Sunningdale up slightly. I think New South Wales, I don't know if you can push it back to 190 or so. I feel like there is a tournament tee that is around the 200 mark, but it's not one that you want to be pushing much beyond that. The other thing, though, is, okay, they're fairly similar yardages. New South Wales, you will always play with a decent wind. So club selection-wise, you could say it's actually different. The shot that you're playing, shot selection, club selection is likely to be very different there. But I take your point. Seven. Glen Eagles Queens, par 5. Yeah, half
Never
par
played
hole. This is a bit disappointing, really, isn't it? You're not coming back at me as I like.
I've come back here on the 3s, but I've not played Glen Eagles. So
I've not played Glen Eagles either.
Yeah.
What I've seen the 7th, like you say, that's the one with a stunning green as well, isn't it?
It plays down. There's a couple of it's hard to describe, really, a course and make it sound as good as it actually is to play. But there's actually quite a few holes on the Queen, so I think it's a very, very pretty course. The PGA I've played a couple of times. It's a big championship layout, but I think a lot of people who are passionate about their course architecture and playing a lot of different golf courses would say the Queens and the Kings are much more intimate, pretty kind of courses that have some interesting green complexes and some variety in the kind of clubs you're hitting off the tee. And there's a few holes on the Queens I might pick, but the 7th just stood out as being one. as one of the sort of few longer holes on there, where there's just a good chance to pick up a stroke, but it also has, the potential for just making a bit of a fool of yourself if you just do try and bite off more than you can chew, or you put it in a bunker off the tee, or you kind of put it in the bunker in the layup or whatever. So that's why I picked Glen Eagles. I think just generally, like, it's situated in such a beautiful part of the world too. 8th at Pebble Beach.
Interestingly, this was in mine.
Yeah,
and I think most people who play Pebble Beach, I think lots of people would say 7 above 8.
Well, so that's what I had in initially, and then I just thought, it is all kind of backdrop there, and I'm conscious that quite a few of the holes and some of the justifications I've put in there, the 3rd at Royal Dornoch, the 5th in Sunningdale New South Wales Glen Eagles, have been sort of visual, aesthetically based, and maybe not down the kind of the traditional or the architecture sort of enthusiast line of, no, but what about the piece of land? It's not about the views, it's about how you're playing it. But I do think the 8th of Pebble Beach is a combination of being stunning and also like just the absolute epitome of a heroic golf hole, really.
It's a striking golf hole.
Where it's just like you step up and nail a good tee shot down there. It's probably not driver, is it? But
no, it's not. Because you can do, like, because I played it up a little bit when I played it, but it's like 6 iron, and something like that. You know what I mean? Like, because
really, it was shortened right down, was it?
Well,
you can't go that far.
You can't
the tee,
drive
can you?
that
like,
far because so it's like, it's not like you can drive it, but then if it's like how close do you want to get to the cliff?
You can't reduce it to 9 iron approach.
And you're just guessing about what you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to give yourself a clean lie and like short enough yardage in as well. I mean, you've got to really miscue the second, I think, to put it in the ocean. But at the same time, you're like, oh my God, like there's a sheer 100 odd drop just literally just over the edge. And I don't know whether it's an apocryphal story. It's terribly sad either way. If it's terribly sad if it is true. But in a heavy mist, apparently some golfers who were in a buggy many years ago kind of drove up onto the 8th and just have literally taken the buggy over the cliff, like 150 feet, obviously to their deaths allegedly. And it's like it's just one of those holes where you're like, this is absolutely crazy, and it probably wouldn't be built today because of. Yeah. The requirements just to literally hit over the ocean and all the kind of craggy rocks below 150 feet.
Story goes that they wouldn't, because I think they might still build it today, but even after the buggy went over the cliff, they refused to put up any fencing or signage because they want to ruin the vista of the hole. So it's like, they might build it today, but it'd be heavily sort of, no, you can't go down there. That's death. That's death over there. Don't go there. Great golf hole at Pebble Beach. 9.
So 9, I picked Muirfield. As you said, Tom, I felt there were so many holes from Muirfield and Rye and the Old Course that I could have slotted in at various points here. So it's kind of really hard to pick. But I picked 9 at Muirfield for a couple of reasons. One, I think he's a great par 5. Played as a par 5. I think it's better as a 5 than as a 4. Played off those tees further back. It's quite a demanding tee shot, I think. The times I've played it, at least with the wind I've played it in, it's like, I think it's maybe a 260 carry. It might be more off the back tee, well, it would be more off the championship tee to a bunker on the left to try and open up the fairway. If it's firm and it's downwind, or you're a slightly longer hitter, you can really get something down there to quite close to the green to be able to like really give yourself a good chance of knocking it on too. But that requires a really, really good tee shot. If you're, in the fairway but further back, or you're in the first cut, which is still fine places to be, you then really got to think about the layup, because it's just littered with bunkers in great places. I think Tom Simpson put a lot of those in. You're seeing this wall on the left, which you just think, I absolutely don't want to be the village idiot and kind of, bail left and hit it over the wall. In reality, you'd have to hit the ball so far left to do that. And so quite often you just see so many people who just kind of come out of it slightly or hit what looks like an okay shot relatively on a relatively straight line. And they're like then in a bunker with a really like either no shot to the green, they're going out sideways, or just a really, really fiddly shot to the green. So I just think it's a brilliant strategic par 5. And also what I love about it is it kind of rounds out the concentric outer loop at Muirfield, which is kind of the defining feature of the routing there. You obviously, you know, the front nine you play out and around that outer loop. And for a links course, I think coming back to the clubhouse, it's quite sort of unique in that sense to be such a prestigious and esteemed course. But to come back to the clubhouse there, if you do want to kind of pop in for a sharpener or whatever, or you do just want to just play 9 holes, in fact, one evening, and then you kind of go in and you play the inner concentric loop on the back 9, which kind of works its way inside. So that was my reason for picking it as my 9th hole. Two reasons there.
Par 35.
Any objections?
No, just an observation. Like you say, I mean, I think to an extent these should always be a bit DNA of who's picking them. Otherwise, it would just be like you say, we'd all go and walk 18 holes of golf, wouldn't we? And we'd just pick out and take notes. But I would say in here, this has a reliance on shot making that maybe would be uncomfortable for some players. You know, you hit a better ball. I would, you know, there's some of those where you've got to hit the ball really good. I mean, let's face it. I'd say that's quite a demanding nine hole loop.
Fair.
That's not a bad thing, but I know from when we go on tour, you know, if it's blowing a hoolie and the guy in the pro shop's going, lads, it's chronic out there today. You'll be like, I got to get out the backs. Let's get at the backs, and we're going to make it happen. And you know, I want to, you know, there's an element of sadism there. And that's not a bad thing. It's just like you like to have, I think, tough ball striking, you know, or tough ball striking kind of holes to make your way through, and that comes through. Like,
yeah, I don't mind. Again, I mean, I'm totally in your camp in terms of not having just stupidly tough driving tests where it's like so binary. You know, there's courses out there I've played the past year where it's just flanked with gorse everywhere, and you see some people play and you're like, to literally put it if you play match play, put it in the fairway and you're going to win the hole. Like, I do not like that. I don't like it for match play reasons, as I've just outlined, but also stroke play. It's like ball in pocket, you're never in the hole. I don't mind if it's wickedly difficult around the green. Now, partly is maybe it's because, you know, I like chipping. I think I've got a half decent short game, but I also feel like just psychologically for everyone, no matter how your short game is, if you're in the hole until you get to the green and then you make a complete pig's ear of it, that feels better than just getting through a load of balls and just walking 400 yards. So I don't mind that there's holes like the second at Rye there, the fourth at George's, you know, even like the fifth at Sunningdale Noon, and maybe the ninth at Muirfield, where they're kind of tricky around the green. There's not really loads to miss around the green, but they're not. I don't think that opening 9 is absolutely nails off the tee. You don't need to be in a league.
There's a few.
So.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
10th, I'll go at a slightly quicker pace on the back 9.
Thank you.
It feels like the club fitting.
I know. This is why Bruce is going last, because otherwise we'd have never got round to ours. Right, Tom, that's Simon Bruce. Go, please continue.
10th, Castle Stewart.
We need a bit of time on this.
Yeah.
I would disagree.
Right. You're not liking that. Why not?
No, I like you to tell me about why you think it's good, and then I can try and take it.
Is that
apart.
because you hit driver 3 wood 7 wood into it last time he played? Is that why?
I
know Sam doesn't. I know Sam. Oh, brilliant! This is again. I mean, maybe this is playing
a bit spinny for me.
It probably is, but I actually the first time
Tom with this, Bruce, not Sam. Attack Bruce with this. He's the one who's gone at you. Come on now, channel your efforts.
It was. I think this was the first course we played when we did our first tour. Our first filming tour. Tour film, you know, and it was so fun. And I remember we'd obviously play the front nine. We got out on 10. It was good. It was a good laugh. Like the weather was surprisingly good for October. It was an absolute mill pond looking out across the sort of Murray Firth. It was just like so unbelievably still, and you could see right across. And I'm just thinking, this is one of the most beautiful places I've played golf. There was a bit of intrigue off the tee, and I do remember us getting the drone up, and Tom was flying around capturing some great shots. And Sam's going all right at this point, and he's just pulled out his sand wedge, hit the purest hosel shank, like it's possible to hit, and then spun
right
round
into the bank.
and said to Tom, I knew I was going to do that because you had that bloody drone up, didn't you? Why? I mean, what are you doing? And it's like, you know, the idea that we've actually just been commissioned to go and do some filming work at this club had gone straight out the window, and Sam was in full on. I had a good score. Going, what have you done to me mode? And I just remember laughing and just thinking, what time to be alive. So that's why, you know, maybe that's a slightly weaker choice.
Funny story on 10 as well,
standpoint.
like you say. The other time we played, it was into an absolute howling wind. And I seem to remember we sort of got ourselves up there okay, and someone hit one, but it just
hang on. I need
up.
to caveat this. We just received our new clubs. All of us had just got the new clubs, and we were up there doing work in a whole bunch of courses up there, including Nairn and Dungleff and Castle Stewart. And so I wasn't really experienced with the clubs just yet. So you need to give me a break on it, yeah? Just give me a break.
I remember Bruce just standing in the fairway to me and looking back, and we've almost got it in binoculars. You've hit the middle of the fairway, about 150 back from us. And it's quite a short hole, this one. And Bruce has just gone, see, that's the thing. She's got to learn to sort of flight it better in these conditions. She's got to learn to take all the hands out. It's far too much like spin on this shot point.
Okay.
Tom's wailed away again on a 3-wood, and I think it's just come down and softly landed about 20 feet behind us still.
Okay, well, that's an exaggeration. We all know that's an exaggeration. But Bruce's brother was with us, and Harry took like a 4-iron off the tee, I remember. And I've smoked a driver. Like, I've smoked it.
Hit it out of the middle, haven't you? And it's just gone.
And then there's 2 balls in the middle of the fairway. I can't, but they were like on the line of me and Harold. And like, you boys weren't on that line. So I walked to the one that's the furthest away, obviously, because I've smoked my driver. Harry's just going, I think you're back there, mate. He must have hit his 4-iron about 100 yards past.
Good things happen at Castle Stewart. We've all had funny stories from Castle Stewart on this podcast.
It's a great place.
Just an observation. Yeah. Right, Bruce, continue. Hole 11, Sunningdale Old.
I don't want any criticism, by the way, for me taking too long, because, you know, I've encouraged some debate on the 10th hole there, and I feel like we've all had a good chuckle out of it. So as long as that's not coming off my time for the back 9, we're all good.
Well, yeah. Me and Sam are allowed to extend the time. You can't just
okay. You can't monologue.
11th, Sunningdale Old, great little short par 4. I like the blind tee shot. I like the fact that there are options. You can hit driver, or you can hit a 5-iron to a fairly flat piece of the fairway, hopefully, and try and, you know, hit a good wedge in. But again, you know, there's not huge amounts of room to play with, so I'll just leave it at that. I think it's a good solid par 4. 12th, Kings Barnes. Don't need to say any more about that. We've all picked it unbelievably. I wonder whether, is that just a function of the fact there aren't many great 12th holes out there, do we think?
Well, that's what I thought, because I looked at them. What did I have on my 12th hole listings? Like, what was in here? So I actually thought a 12th at Sunningdale Old was a possible contender, so that was in mine. I had the 12th. Hang on.
I had the 12th at Royal St George's.
I had Birkdale's 12th, which is a brilliant par 3. Obviously, the old course. I had Peachtree down as a 12th.
Well, the 12th of the old would have been
and Hoylake, you know, there's a load of good 12th holes. So I don't know what it is. I don't know whether the place of having like a fairly good length par 5 in the round is almost like what we were crying out for. Maybe none of us seem to. I suspect that maybe the 12th Kings Barnes is a symptom of 10, 11, 13 and 14 not being blessed with par 5s of similar standing. So we know we're searching for a par 5. So you kind of, well, you know, if you need a par 5 in and around 11, 12 or 13, Kings Barnes would you go to?
Yeah,
I honestly don't know.
Yeah. 13, Blackwell. As Tom said, I just think it's a superb par 3. Probably better at the yardage of 160 because of that emphasis on distance control. For the right-handed player, if you hit a slightly weak fanny shot right, you're going to be in the hazard. If you hit a hot pull left and you go long, you're going to be in a swell at the back of the green or even in the hedge. So, yeah, just a great mid-length par 3. Don't need to say any more. 14 was tricky because, again, you know, the 14th at Rye has a special place sort of in my own kind of golfing library, as it were. And, you know, it was kind of a bit of a toss up there. And again, I was sort of thinking, well, what, you know, the second hole at Rye, I'd quite like to slot in there. So Cruden Bay, I think the 14th there is again like just quirky and fun.
It's a great.
I don't think it's straightforward, even though it is the bathtub green, and you'd think, well, you could just run it in from anywhere. It's still long enough to be challenging. You got to hit solid shots in, and you're just kind of out there and playing anything. This is just like so unique and so quirky, and you get to almost sort of spot the pin a few holes early, don't you, when you're on the 10th tee box or 9th tee box. So that's why I put that down. Now, 15.
I like Cruden Bay's 14.
Yeah.
Just build on what you were saying there. I expected it to be a fairly redundant par 4 with a really, really good kind of quirky bathtub green, but actually from the tee, it's a brilliant golf hole because you're almost teeing at. I seem to remember we're almost teeing at the sort of hill that takes you up to the 10th tee, don't you? And I seem to remember we were having a little joust at the time when we were playing, and actually the green's got a bit of nuance to it because there's a little thing on the story where I'm hitting a putt and Bruce is like, yeah, I mean, you've basically hooked that about 20 yards left, that putt. And then all of a sudden it starts snaking in. It is a great, and a little staircase off at the side of the green. I think it's a really, really good golf hole, that.
I remember not hitting a brilliant tee shot off there. I think did I hit iron? I don't know what I hit.
Yes, you did, I think.
And I maybe was like right side of the fairway, and there was a big mound in front of me. And I remember I hit like a 7-iron in or something, but I was on a fairly flat piece of ground, but quite close to the sort of where it went into a mound. And I was thinking like, I've got to actually hit this thing solidly to kind of clear the lip almost. Otherwise I'm destined for another North Berwick into the wall, coming back at me 100 miles an hour. Who knows what's going to happen? But so again, like just more to it than just the bathtub green, like really good hole. 15th Barnbougle Dunes. Now I realise this is one that you guys haven't played. It's a bit sort of out on the end of the earth, but it's a mid-length par 4. It's just a really crazy piece of land that you're playing off. There's almost like a sort of estuary type thing with a beach almost that runs down the right hand side. It's not really in play. You've got some funky bunkering. You can't really hit driver because it narrows so much, and then you've got a green with great runoffs that sort of is a kind of crowning sort of achievement on it, because you want to hit a sort of really solid tee shot to give you the right angle. I mean, we hear so much about golf just being about kind of bomb and gouge, hit it a long way and get it as far down in there as you can. But I think angles, they're certainly important around Barnbougle.
Mike Clayton's golf courses.
Yeah.
It's a great looking golf hole. I have no knowledge of it whatsoever. I've just tapped into Google. It's a stunning golf hole, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe that. I mean, I don't know whether I'm just based this whole card on looks. Maybe I'm just quite a shallow golfer. But yeah, it is a really good looking hole.
It's a great looking card.
And then 16 North Berwick. I do really enjoy it because you're playing back towards the town. It's got the drama of the green and the Biarritz green, the sort of original, the most severe case of it. Are there other holes at North Berwick that I would have liked to have picked? Yeah, possibly. I think 13's fantastic. 14, I like your choice there as well, to be fair, Tom. And 15, the Redan, all great holes. But I think 16 is strong too, and kind of stands up in the company that it's in on that card.
I don't know. I've got fairly slim notes on 16, not millions of mega strong contenders, which might be like calamity for me. Was a bit of like an outsider, maybe what I would typically pick. But I didn't, just being brutally honest, I find that quite a surprising pick in your card, because it feels like such a lottery, that golf hole, because you can hit 2 good shots and you're going to walk away with 5 or 6.
Because not only is the green that Biarritz, but it's 2 individual volcano greens, really, isn't it? Because they both run off both sides, don't they?
And it's a brilliant golf hole for
rock hard.
I think that obviously its place in the golf architecture community. I think it's clearly extremely memorable. It's very definable. As a standalone golf hole, I'm not convinced it's actually that strong. Would be certainly in today's era. I'm not certain.
The issue I found with my 16th holes is that there was some 16th holes I could pick that were fantastic golf holes, but they're par 3s. So like Muirfield, great par 3. Royal St George's, another great par 3. But I felt like I'd already shot my bolt when it came to the par 3s I was going to choose. And
You've only picked 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And only one on the
Yeah.
back 9.
Yeah.
I
So
think you
I
could have
could
done
have maybe slotted that in, but then Royal St George's and Muirfield, where do I then kind of then drop
Yeah.
them out? So I thought, North Berwick is a very, very memorable course. I love going back and playing it whenever I get the chance. And it's like, yeah, I felt I needed to get that in there. And 16 was the hole to choose, given that 13, I wanted to keep Blackwell in, and 15 at Barnbougle was such a crazy hole that sort of just stood out in the memory. I was like, well, that, so it's just, there's a lot of the kind of reverse engineering mentality that goes on there. But as you guys say, like fair criticisms, but.
No, but the point is absolutely fine, because you're thinking about that and you're like, oh, it's because I'm getting the sense it's not an ideal pick. But
it is memorable still. I love the.
But then it's
yeah.
the secondary impacts of then unwinding it, because it's not a case of, I'll drop 16th of North Berwick out because I actually prefer 16th at St George's or whatever it might be. It's like, well, then I can't have St George's 4th, so then I'm absolutely snookered myself there. That's why the exercise, and it kind of going full circle, because we've been through it, in lots of detail here, but. That's why it's so fun to do, because it's like, and it's always changing as you play new courses, but it's so hard when you do hit something where you're like, that's not ideal. It's like, where's your trade-off? Like, do I want to drop that to bring that in? And then you have to then rework 3 or 4 holes at least, or at least I found, to get something back into the card.
Yeah.
So no, it is an interesting one. Yeah. Like it's not criticism what you picked. It's like, it's so hard when I had things that I was like, I wanted to put that one in. So then you have to manufacture loads of things around it to make it happen.
Yeah. And again, I mean, just segueing on to 17, like that was another course that I felt another hole. Sorry, I had real difficulty with. I did feel some kind of pull towards the old course because it is just such an iconic hole. And again, the uniqueness of a hole, I think, should be taken into consideration when you're looking at something. And it's like, so many architects have said that hole just wouldn't be built now, and you're teeing off over a hotel, and it's just rock hard. It's brilliant. But as I said, I always wanted 18 on the old course on there, so I couldn't pick that. Prestwick, I think, is another great pick that you've had, Tom. But the theme that was emerging when I was looking at 17th holes was, and I've kind of, not fallen foul of it, but it's something that I've gone along with myself, my own pick in 17 at Carnoustie, is that a lot of 17th holes are really rock hard. And I just wasn't really sure that was something that I really wanted to go along with. I think actually
You have picked a rock hard.
Yeah, I have picked one. Again, though, I mean, the other contender that I had in there, which I think is an absolutely brilliant hole, I know I sound like a broken record here, the 17th at Muirfield, because it's a par 5 where if you put a good tee shot in play, you've got a really good chance of making a birdie. And if you hit 2 really solid shots there, you could make eagle. But there's no other, again, I've already picked that at the 9th hole of Muirfield. And I couldn't think of, that was sort of the mentality I had. I was like, well, I wonder if there's a hole out there that's similar where you have a real chance to kind of have a last bit of a last minute press in your round to maybe fight back, or even, push further ahead if you've got a good score going. But all the 17th holes I was looking at were pretty demanding tests.
Plus, if you'd have picked Muirfield 17, we'd have just accused you of selecting it purely on the basis that when I played there with you, I think you rifled a drive. What's the neighbouring golf hole? Remind me. I've played it once.
Down 14. Yeah.
Down 14 and leave yourself sandwich in.
Yeah, which the member who was playing with Robin at the time told me to do, and it was downwind enough that I could get away with it. But yeah, that was really, really fun. I forgot about that.
My highlight was when
Robin sandwich to a par 5 was fun. That sounds it.
Because we were playing foursomes with Robin.
Actually,
I'll embellish ever so slightly here, but we watched Robin go and play the second shot, and casually, very discreetly, I will add, pull his phone out of his golf bag and take a little picture of where he's playing his second shot from. I think it was...
That was the 4th, wasn't it?
Yeah, 5th, par 5. Yeah.
So good.
But that's the theme of... I was just looking at so many different courses there for that 17th hole. Sunningdale Old, I kind of feel like if you get a really good drive away there, you can have a wedge in your hand, and it's maybe a chance. But the drive's still pretty tough. So it just seemed that, right, again, another 17th hole that's demanding. So I just kind of thought, well, you know what, kind of go with consensus here. And the 17th hole at Carnoustie is a brilliant hole, as you've explained, Sam. It is really, really tough. But hey, Got to pick it.
This is the only time we're. Oh, sorry, of course, you've got your 18th, which everyone knows about.
And then the final, the 18th being the old course, which, I mean, everyone knows about it, but it's just totally iconic. The fairway is so wide, it almost becomes a thing in your mind because it's like the fairway is so wide. And if I miss this fairway, I'm like, how have you missed it? That's what everyone will say, but it's so doable because everyone has a bin in them, don't they? You're playing back into the town. Like, yeah, it's a chance, definitely. If the wind's in the right direction, it's a good chance to kind of finish with a flourish. And that feeling you get on the foot, above all, the feeling you get on the 18th tee box, I think it's just a very, very special one that probably no other course can match.
Here.
I like it. I think it's interesting talking them through, isn't it? I think it's good to get a bit of debate. Like, I wonder how, because this is the only time we'll probably discuss this collectively on the pod. So I'd be remiss not to kind of just ask ourselves some searching questions about it. And it's not about critiquing, and that's definitely not about critiquing the selection. What I mean by that is, maybe some of the courses that we've all selected that have, stood out, and then some of the ones which are surprising. But then also I wonder if we're lucky enough to have played another, blisteringly hot set of courses. We've been really lucky as part of Cookie Jar to play a lot of great golf courses. We played a lot of great golf courses outside of Cookie Jar. But I do wonder if you played the world's best 100, how many of these would actually still be on there? And I can't help but think that actually a good smattering of those golf holes would, just because of the, these are iconic golf holes that a lot of maybe the world's best courses don't necessarily have lay claim to. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know.
It's a difficult task for sure. I mean, I think between you two, I've probably played the least courses of you two, just as a consequence of playing golf for a lot shorter period of time. Not that there were some that I found difficult to fill, because it's not like I haven't played enough golf courses, but it's just there isn't the strength in depth at a certain hole number. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I found in certain places, that if you play the top 100 in the world, you're going to, or top, the vast majority of the top 100 in the world, you're going to have strength and depth everywhere, which I don't know whether makes the task easier or more difficult. But
I also think it's wide open to recency bias. So you've played, obviously a slightly shorter golfing career, Tom, but you're going to take the piss here about, I played this when I was very young. But when I was young, joking aside, I used to do loads of trips to Ireland with my mum and dad, and I would have been 12 or 13, and we played a ton of golf courses, like loads of the West Coast, Donegal, Ring of Kerry. But the issue is I've got no real memory to lean on there. 23 years has elapsed, and I honestly can't remember the specific golf holes. But I know if I had those all now and they were as fresh in my memory as, the 10th at Valderrama or the 16th at Royal Portrush, they'd almost certainly give it a run for its money. So I think recency bias has a massive sort of like factor there, which is why, because Barnbougle's a bit of it's a few years in the past, that one. So that's obviously like stuck in your mind maybe a bit more.
Yeah. There are those holes where you step on a tee and you're just like, holy shit, this is just stunning. This is an absolutely, you kind of jaw hits the floor sort of thing, doesn't it? Where you're like, okay, wow. And it kind of, but there's not many of those. There really are. And that doesn't mean they're not great golf holes, but I just don't think there's loads of holes that necessarily have that effect on you. And I totally agree with what you're saying there, Sam, the recency bias. How often you've played a course. It's no surprise there. Like I look at Rye and like the old course, St Andrews, and Blackwell. These are courses that I've played a lot, and you can't help but have a special attachment to them because the more you play them, the more you realise there's just different ways of playing it, different ways you can get tripped up, different options all around the green, etc.
And you've had your best times at those places. You've had some of your best memories because you've played most of your golf at those places. So, it's daft that, it's no surprise rather that, Blackwell features in all of ours. And, so no, I agree. Any courses you regret missing out?
I think it's interesting not to pick on a course by name, but none of us put in any holes from Birkdale.
Yeah, that was one for me.
I've only played it once.
I've only played it once.
Off the winter tees when we were actually, we were kind of struggling against the light. Do you remember, Sam? Sort of running around, and it was just on a fairly sort of dreary day. So, and again, just tough to, when it's raining and you kind of like sort of battling that side of things, you just, it can just be harder to remember. I mean, I remember some the crashing dunes and everything that's Birkdale's famous for, but to only kind of play it once in a slightly shortened format, I feel like I'd want to play it in its full glory then to give it the full sort of measure of it and hopefully include it.
I would also, you both included Muirfield, or Muirfield Golf Club, and I would have loved to have had one in from there. I thought, but again, it's kind of like how Tom touched on, I think, which is there's so many really strong golf holes in Muirfield. Its greatest strength is that there is no weakness, if that makes sense. Whereas the vast majority of golf courses don't do that. So maybe in the nature of what I was picking meant that I kind of had a blind spot to that.
It's hard to pick out a standout hole if they're all blisteringly good. I think that's the difficulty.
Well, because that's kind of my next question was going to be, which course could you pull on the most? If someone said taps on to as many holes from this exercise could come from one golf course, which one would it be? I've got an idea.
Well, actually, I think the initial exercise we did on this was maybe a bit of miscommunication. And I wasn't adhering to the sort of one course. You can only pick one course once. And I got most of the way there with the old course, Rye, Muirfield, and Sunningdale. I literally you could get most of the way there.
Get them home from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you could, because it was like, there's whole, like the old course, there's holes like 12 and 11 that we've not even touched on. None of us have mentioned those. It's like those are two unbelievable golf holes back to back. It's like slot them straight in. Thank you very much. Move to the next one. But because of only picking them once, you can't do that here.
I think another two golf courses you could have in that ilk. Royal County Down.
Yep, I totally agree.
You could, it's like, just slot them in most places. And it's actually a course I didn't pick, bizarrely, but for the same reasons perhaps you didn't pick Muirfield, is Royal Aberdeen.
Yeah, and that's partly why I wanted to get 8 in, because I really liked Royal Aberdeen. I thought it was there. I actually thought Dornoch, to be honest with you, I could have gone 2 to 6 at Dornoch quite comfortably. You could. Yeah, there's an argument for them all, because I mean it's pretty hard to beat those. Those are worldies.
And the thing we've left out as well, which kind of slightly, it's inevitable, isn't it, with this format, is the routing of a course, which is so important. And I think, maybe the mistake or the trap that modern architects kind of fall into a little bit, if I could be so bold, with the sort of advent of huge amounts of earth, moving equipment and modern technology and all the rest of it, is that you can almost create like the best 18 individual holes nowadays and not really worry about, because of using, increasing use of buggies abroad, not so much in the UK, but certainly abroad, you don't have to worry about getting from a green to the next tee. But actually, something that I know we're all huge fans of is like how you make your way around a piece of land and minimizing some of those long walks from green to tee. And so, as you say there, Sam, like the flow of 2 to 6 at Dornoch is just mega, isn't it? Because you're like, it's just a really, really enjoyable walk.
You don't look up, do you? You just fall off and off you go, and it's just like you say, it feels like playing one golf hole.
It's difficult in this to touch on it, I think, in this exercise, because there's just, how do you do that? Like, it's hard, because we are essentially just creating 18 individual golf holes that we'd like to play back to back if we had a transporter or a teleporter. But I do think, some of the best golf courses are ones you can just literally trip off the green and you're on the tee box, for sure.
I will add with this, the idea behind the series as well is that, and hopefully it's something we'll build on and add to as we go with different people. But, this, like I think we've done it as a bit of a, there's been no shortage of testosterone of like, I didn't realize it was competitive until I picked first hole at Rye, and then I realized I was immediately in a gunfight, and that I'd maybe turned up with a knife. But actually, there, all the kind of stay with it. There is no right or wrong answer here or whatever. But this is about what it means to you as an 18 hole. So, I think one thing we will definitely do is we've created a little, what I think to be an Eclectic 18 scorecard as well. I think it's a very tastefully designed scorecard. We're going to load that up on our website, so you can just save that image, stick it in your phone. If you want to create one, you can. If you want to stick it on social media, you can. We're going to run these as guest episodes, and we're going to make them. I think this probably has run past a short, sharp 40 minutes, but we will do
a short, sharp hour and 40.
These will be sub 30-minute episodes, I think, is the target. And we want to do them with people where they've got really interesting stories to tell. And we've got a few of those people in mind, but, I also wouldn't rule out, and I'd love to see people kind of doing their own, listeners doing their own, sending them into us. Maybe there's some cool stories in there. Maybe, crikey, heaven forbid, maybe one day someone sends in, it's like, actually, some of the stories and the way this person's done this would make for an amazing podcast episode. So I think it'll be quite exciting. And I think there's a lot of merit in just doing it for your own good. We'll obviously stick this stuff on social media and we'll share it and we'll give people the platform to do it for themselves. But, at the very minimum, I think it's a brilliant way of taking stock of the courses you've played. So, I think it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And something that's just dawned on me there is, we're three guys who our home club is Blackwell, and we love playing there a huge amount, but it's just interesting, isn't it, how we've all kind of tended towards links courses. I think in the main, I know I've picked at least 11, sort of true links, I think. Sam, I think you've picked 12, and Tom, I haven't totted up how many you've picked, but it's just stuff like that. It's interesting. You kind of, I didn't think I necessarily had that bias in me towards links golf, and it's not right or wrong, but it's just interesting, isn't it? Knowing yourself and knowing what it is you like. I think it's maybe the way the whole plays, isn't it? I think it's so much is the way the whole plays, though. The ground conditions that links give you, and there's obviously Heathland variations as well, which are firm and fast. But I think the way that links golf plays, and doing the amount of links golf that we have played in the last few years has put a spotlight on it. But it really does open up so much more shot choice to you. And there's so much more variation in terms of the way holes play. I think even in one sitting at a lot of these places, you can see it. And maybe that's why, it's a great observation, isn't it? And rightly or wrongly, these links courses are the most iconic in the game. For all the reasons we've talked about in our films and stuff over time.
So let's, we're very conscious of our listeners' time, and we've absolutely waxed lyrical. So let's wrap it up on that. So thank you very much for listening. Please do, we urge you to go and have a go at this yourself, and please send it in to us. And we look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. And thank you very much for listening. And until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.